They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine was served at 180 degrees of pure white-hot rage in front of 100 corporate executives with their phones out. My name is Shane Peterson, and I'm 34 years old. I'm a union welder, certified, skilled, and proud of what I do. 10 years of grinding steel, countless hours perfecting my craft, and a reputation among my crew that I've earned through sweat and precision. My hands are calloused from torch work, my back aches most nights from crouching over steel beams, and my work clothes carry the honest burns and metal dust of a man who builds the infrastructure that keeps Arizona running. The skeletal frames of Phoenix's skyline rise because men like me show up every morning, ready to make metal bend to our will. I never thought that would be something to apologize for. But sitting in my living room tonight in Mesa, watching my wife Ashley scroll through her phone without acknowledging my existence, I'm starting to understand that somewhere along the way, she decided it was. I just finished a 12-hour shift welding structural steel for a new office complex in downtown Phoenix. The July heat was brutal, even for Arizona. By noon, the steel was too hot to touch even with gloves, and we had to work in rotating shifts to avoid heat exhaustion. My muscles ache, my jeans are peppered with spark burns, and there's metal filings under my fingernails that I'll scrub off in the shower later. But there's satisfaction in the exhaustion, the kind that comes from honest work completed right. That building's frame will stand strong for decades because of what my crew and I accomplished today. When the next earthquake hits, when the desert winds howl, that structure will hold, because every weld was perfect. Ashley sits on our tan leather sofa in a perfectly pressed business suit, her manicured fingers dancing across her phone screen. She's 32, a senior marketing director at Southwest Hospitality Management, one of Phoenix's most prestigious resort development firms. Her blonde hair is styled in the kind of sleek waves that scream executive, and her makeup is still flawless despite getting home 2 hours ago. The air conditioning hums at 72 degrees, a luxury that my union wages help provide, yet she's never once acknowledged the comfort my work affords her. She doesn't look up when I walk in, doesn't ask about my day, doesn't acknowledge I exist. The woman who used to greet me with cold beer and genuine interest in my projects now treats my arrival like an inconvenience. "Hey," I say, setting my welding helmet by the door and peeling off my work gloves. The leather is stiff with sweat and metal dust. She responds with a barely audible grunt without looking up from her screen. I try again. Rough day at the site. Had to redo the entire east wing support structure because the architect changed specs last minute. Took us an extra 4 hours, but we got it sorted. The building inspector said it was some of the cleanest structural work he'd seen all year. Ashley finally glances up, and the look in her eyes makes my stomach clench. It's not indifference, it's contempt. The same look she might give a panhandler or a stray dog. "Must be nice to just clock in and clock out without any real responsibility," she says coldly, her voice carrying the practiced dismissal of someone who's perfected the art of making others feel small. The words hit like a welding arc to the face. I stand there for a moment trying to process what she just said. Real responsibility? I'm responsible for steel structures that could collapse and kill people if I make a mistake. I'm responsible for making sure families have safe buildings, businesses can operate, hospitals can function. Every morning, I strap on 40 pounds of safety gear because one wrong move, one moment of inattention, could mean death or permanent injury. But I don't say any of that. Instead, I just nod and head toward the kitchen. "I'll start dinner," I reply quietly. As I move around our kitchen, the kitchen that my steady union paycheck helps secure in this suburban Mesa home, I think about how different things used to be. 3 years ago, when we first moved into this house, Ashley seemed to respect what I did. She'd tell her friends about how skilled trades keep society functioning, how the world would collapse without welders and electricians and contractors. She'd brag about my certifications, my safety record, the complex projects I'd completed. But 3 promotions in 2 years changed her. She started dressing differently, talking about market positioning and brand synergy. She began attending after-work events she never invites me to, coming home with stories about clients and colleagues whose names I don't recognize. She started using phrases like strategic partnerships and vertical integration in casual conversation, as if the corporate jargon validated her existence in ways that our marriage couldn't. And somewhere in that transformation, she stopped seeing me as her equal. It didn't happen overnight. It was gradual, insidious, like rust eating through steel. First, it was subtle comments about my salary compared to her colleagues' six-figure incomes. Then suggestions that I was just doing manual labor while she was building strategic relationships. Little remarks about how anyone can learn to weld steel, but not everyone can navigate complex client dynamics. Each comment chipped away at something fundamental between us. I tried pushing back, defending my profession, explaining the skill required, the precision, the responsibility of keeping structures safe and sound. I'd show her my certifications, explain the physics of metallurgy, describe the split-second decisions that mean the difference between a building that stands for a century and one that collapses in the first strong wind. But Ashley would just roll her eyes and suggest, maybe I should go, back to school, get a real corporate job, be more like her successful colleagues. As if everything I'd built, everything I'd learned, everything I took pride in was somehow inadequate because it didn't come with a corner office and expense account. Tonight feels different, though. There's something final about the way she looked at me, the casual cruelty in her dismissal. As I season the chicken and chop vegetables, I realize with crystalline clarity that my wife doesn't see me as beneath her. She sees me as a failure, a mistake she made in her 20s that she's now too sophisticated to repeat. The irony isn't lost on me. The steel I weld today will outlast both of us. Long after Ashley's marketing campaigns are forgotten, long after her strategic partnerships have dissolved, the buildings I helped construct will still be standing. But in her world, longevity means nothing without a LinkedIn profile to showcase it. We eat dinner in silence. Ashley picks at her food while responding to emails on her phone, her thumb scrolling through what I assume are work messages, but could be anything. She's built walls around her digital life that I'm not allowed to breach. I watch her and wonder when exactly she became this person. When did the woman who used to curl up against me on this same sofa and talk about our future become someone who can't bear to acknowledge my presence? Her phone buzzes with a text, and for the first time all evening, she smiles. Not at me, of course. At whatever message just appeared on her screen. The smile transforms her face, makes her look like the woman I married. And for a moment, I remember what we used to have. Then she catches me watching her, and the mask slides back into place. I need to finish some client presentations, she announces, standing abruptly and carrying her barely touched plate to the sink. She doesn't rinse it or put it in the dishwasher. That's become my job too, apparently. After dinner, she disappears into our home office, the room that used to be our shared den before her career started consuming our lives. I clean the kitchen, do the laundry, handle the household maintenance that somehow became exclusively my responsibility when her income started eclipsing mine. The dishwasher needs fixing, the garage door is sticking, and the air conditioning unit is making that grinding noise again. All things I can handle myself, but tasks that apparently make me more of a handyman than a husband in Ashley's eyes. She emerges around 10 p.m., announces she's exhausted from a high-stress day of managing resort marketing campaigns, and goes to bed without another word. No goodnight kiss, no conversation about tomorrow's plans, no acknowledgement that we're supposed to be partners in this life we're building together. I lie awake next to her that night, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. She sleeps peacefully, completely unaware of the damage she's inflicted. Or maybe she is aware and just doesn't care anymore. Her breathing is steady, content, while I lie there wondering when my own home became a place where I feel like an unwelcome guest. The air conditioning kicks on, and I think about the ductwork I helped install when we bought this house. Every room stays comfortable because I knew how to route the system properly, how to balance the airflow, how to ensure efficiency that keeps our electricity bills manageable. But Ashley doesn't see the skill in that. She sees maintenance, not engineering, labor, not craftsmanship. I didn't know it then, but that conversation was the beginning of the end. Because 2 weeks later, Ashley would invite me somewhere she'd spent 6 years making sure I'd never go, and it would destroy everything. 2 weeks after the manual labor conversation, something changes. I'm eating leftover pizza at our kitchen table, still in my work clothes, when Ashley walks in with an expression I haven't seen in months. She's almost nervous, which immediately puts me on alert. Ashley doesn't do nervous, she does confident, dismissive, or annoyed. Nervous suggests vulnerability. and vulnerability suggests she needs something. Shane, she says, setting her purse down with unusual care, I need to ask you something. I look up from my dinner, immediately suspicious. Ashley doesn't ask. She informs, demands, or dismisses. Asking suggests she needs something from me, and we both know she stopped needing anything from me a long time ago, at least anything beyond household maintenance and bill paying. What's up? I respond, taking another bite of pizza while studying her face. She's wearing her work clothes, but seems less composed than usual. Her perfectly styled hair has a few strands out of place, and she's fidgeting with her wedding ring, a gesture I haven't seen in years. She sits across from me, smoothing her skirt with hands that seem slightly unsteady. There's a company, charity gala, Friday night, annual fundraiser, open bar, luxury resort venue downtown. I want you to come with me. I actually laugh. I can't help it. The absurdity hits me like a physical force. You want me to come to a work event? Yes, she replies firmly, but there's something brittle in her voice. Your work event? I clarify, setting down my pizza slice. Yes, Shane. My work event, she confirms with growing irritation, as if my surprise is somehow unreasonable. I lean back in my chair, studying her face more carefully. In 6 years of marriage, Ashley has never once invited me to a company function, not once. Every time I suggested meeting her colleagues or attending corporate gatherings, she shut me down with an arsenal of excuses. I wouldn't fit in with the resort development culture. I'd feel uncomfortable around her professional peers. I might say something embarrassing about blue-collar work that would reflect poorly on her image. She made it clear her work world was sacred territory, and I was permanently banned from entry. Why now? I asked directly. After 6 years of telling me I don't belong in your professional world, what suddenly changed your mind? Ashley's jaw tightens, and I can see her cycling through potential responses. I never said that exactly. You said it last month when Brady from accounting invited us to his wedding. You said I'd stand out like a sore thumb among the other couples because they're all college-educated professionals. That was different, she starts. You said it when they had the holiday party at that country club. You went alone and told me I'd feel out of place with the partners and their wives because I wouldn't understand their conversations about market dynamics and investment portfolios. Shane, she tries to interrupt. You said it when your boss got promoted and they threw him a celebration dinner. You said bringing me would be like mixing oil and water, that blue collar and white collar don't blend well at networking events. I said it once, she snaps, her composure finally cracking. One time, and you're acting like I've been excluding you for years. The lie hangs in the air between us like welding smoke. We both know she's said it at least a dozen times in a dozen different ways. Each excuse carefully crafted to keep me away from the life she's built without me. The professional identity she's constructed that apparently can't accommodate a husband who works with his hands. I lean forward, genuinely curious now. So, what changed? What happened to make you suddenly want your blue-collar husband mixing with your white-collar colleagues? Something flickers across her face. Panic? Calculation? It's gone too quickly for me to identify, but I know I've hit something. There's a reason for this invitation, and it has nothing to do with suddenly wanting to share her professional world with me. I want you there, okay? Isn't that enough? Take it or leave it, she says defensively, crossing her arms. Every instinct I've developed in 34 years of life is screaming that something is wrong. This isn't generosity or inclusion. This is strategy. But I'm also wounded, curious, and stupid enough to want to see what her world actually looks like. Maybe I need to understand what made her so dismissive of mine. Maybe seeing her in her element will help me figure out when exactly we became strangers living in the same house. Fine, I say finally. I'll go. Relief floods her features, but it's not the relief of a wife happy to share her professional life with her husband. It's the relief of someone who just cleared a crucial hurdle in a larger plan. That relief immediately transforms into control mode. Wear your nice suit, she instructs, already back to her old self. The navy one, and don't drink too much. You know how you get when you're nervous around people you don't know. Be charming, but not too talkative. Let me do most of the talking when we're in groups. I nod along, but I'm not really listening to her instructions. I'm watching her face, cataloging the micro-expressions that flash across her features. She's planning something. This invitation isn't spontaneous, it's calculated, and I'm apparently a crucial component in whatever she's orchestrating. Then she delivers the line that crystallizes everything. And Shane, don't tell people you're a welder. Say you're in structural engineering or something corporate sounding. The fury that rises in my chest is so pure, so complete, that for a moment I can't speak. She wants me there, but only if I pretend to be someone else. Only if I hide the work I'm proud of, the profession that built the life she enjoys, the skills that keep her office building standing and safe. Structural engineering, I repeat slowly, tasting the corporate euphemism. It's not a lie. You engineer structural solutions. It just sounds more professional, she explains, as if she's doing me a favor by helping me misrepresent myself. Professional. Like what I actually do is somehow unprofessional. Like the certification, the training, the expertise, the union membership, the decades of experience. Like none of that matters because I work with my hands instead of shuffling papers and attending meetings. I don't argue. I don't defend my profession again. Instead, I make a decision that will prove more dangerous than Ashley realizes. I'm going to that gala, and I'm telling everyone exactly what I do for a living. She can be ashamed of me if she wants, but I won't be ashamed of myself. Sure, I say calmly. Structural engineering, got it. The days leading up to the gala are strange. Ashley is on edge, constantly checking her appearance, rehearsing conversations in the mirror, obsessing over details that seem wildly disproportionate to a simple charity fundraiser. She gets her hair done professionally at a salon that charges more than I make in a day, buys a new dress that costs more than most people's monthly car payments, and acts like Friday night is the most important event of her life. The build-up feels wrong. This isn't excitement about sharing her world with her husband. This is preparation for something bigger than she's admitting. She's treating this gala like a performance where every detail matters, and I'm starting to realize I'm not her guest. I'm her prop. I start paying attention to things I previously ignored. Ashley taking phone calls in other rooms, speaking in hushed tones that stop abruptly when I appear, closing her laptop when I walk by, as if the screen contains state secrets instead of marketing presentations. Coming home later than usual with vague explanations about client dinners and strategy sessions. Working weekends she's never worked before. I don't have proof of anything yet. But patterns emerge when you know what to look for. And after 6 years of marriage, I'm finally learning to look. The woman who once shared every detail of her day now guards her phone like it contains nuclear launch codes. Friday evening arrives. I stand in front of our bedroom mirror, straightening my tie, looking at my reflection in the navy suit Ashley selected. The man staring back looks respectable, professional, like someone who belongs at a corporate charity gala. But I know better now. I'm walking into enemy territory, invited by someone who sees me as a liability she needs to manage rather than a partner she wants to celebrate with. I had no idea I was walking into a trap, but even if I had known, I would have gone anyway. Because sometimes you need to see the betrayal with your own eyes before you can truly let go. The resort venue is exactly what I expected, the kind of place that charges $25 for a cocktail and $60 for an appetizer, where the waitstaff speaks in hushed, reverent tones, and everyone looks like they stepped out of a business magazine. Floor-to-ceiling windows offer a panoramic view of the Phoenix skyline, a skyline I helped build, beam by beam, weld by weld. The decor screams expensive in that understated way that only truly wealthy people understand. I arrive in my navy suit feeling immediately out of place, not because I look wrong, but because I can sense the difference in the air. These people breathe money, status, connections. They move through the world assuming doors will open for them, expecting service, entitled to the best tables and preferential treatment. They've never worked a job where a mistake could literally kill someone. Ashley meets me at the entrance looking absolutely stunning in a black cocktail dress that hugs her curves perfectly. Her hair is styled in loose waves that probably took 3 hours to achieve. Her makeup is flawless. And she's wearing jewelry I've never seen before. Expensive pieces that catch the light and whisper success to anyone paying attention. She kisses my cheek quickly, a performance for anyone watching, and immediately leans in to whisper her final reminder. Remember, structural engineering, she murmurs against my ear, her breath carrying the scent of expensive perfume and barely contained anxiety. I ignore her instruction completely. You look beautiful, I tell her, and mean it. Whatever else has gone wrong between us, Ashley is still the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. For a moment, I remember what it felt like to be proud of having her on my arm, instead of feeling like an embarrassment she's trying to manage. "Thank you," she replies, but she's already scanning the room, identifying targets, planning her networking strategy. "Come on, let me introduce you to some people." The introductions unfold exactly as I predicted. Ashley leads me from group to group, each cluster of colleagues more polished and pretentious than the last. When asked about my work, I smile pleasantly and tell the truth. "I'm a union welder," I state clearly, watching their faces change. The reactions are polite but unmistakable. A momentary pause, a subtle shift in body language, a quick glance at Ashley that says, "Really? This is what you married?" Then they turn back to her with renewed interest, steering conversations toward quarterly projections, client acquisitions, and market expansion strategies that exclude me by design. I don't care. I get a beer from the bar, overpriced but decent, find a strategic corner where I can observe, and settle in to watch. This is Ashley's show. Parade me around just enough to prove she has a husband, while simultaneously demonstrating that I don't belong in her world. But as the evening progresses, I start to see something else. Something that makes my blood run cold and my hands clench into fists. Ashley barely acknowledges my presence after the initial introductions. She drifts between clusters of colleagues like a butterfly, but there's nothing random about her movement. She's working the room with surgical precision, touching arms and shoulders, laughing too loudly at jokes that aren't funny, performing in a way I've never seen before. She's a different person here. Confident, aggressive, flirtatious. The quiet contempt she shows me at home has been replaced by something predatory and calculating. She's hunting, and I'm starting to understand that I'm not her husband at this event. I'm her alibi. I watch her position herself strategically among the power players, the partners, the senior directors, the decision makers who control promotions and salary increases. But two men in particular seem to command her special attention. The first is tall and blonde, late 30s, with the kind of lean build that suggests expensive gym memberships and personal trainers. He wears his authority like a tailored suit, and when he speaks, everyone in his vicinity leans in to listen. People defer to him with the automatic, bops of respect reserved for those who control paychecks and career advancement. The second is darker, slightly older, early 40s, with a wedding ring that catches the light when he gestures. He moves with the calculated charm of someone who's made a career out of managing relationships, schmoozing clients, closing deals. Both men seem to know Ashley well, too well. When the dancing starts, I watch from my corner as Ashley joins the makeshift dance floor in the center of the ballroom. Within seconds, she's flanked by both men, moving between them with an intimacy that makes my jaw clench and my knuckles go white around my beer bottle. Their hands find her waist, her shoulders, the small of her back. Their bodies press against hers in ways that have nothing to do with professional relationships, and everything to do with ownership. I tell myself, this is just corporate culture. Maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe this is how successful people network at galas. But deep down, I know better. Tough night. A woman in a red dress appears beside me like a materialization. She's clearly drunk, swaying slightly, her lipstick smudged, her eyes unfocused. The alcohol has stripped away whatever filter she normally maintains in professional settings. "I'm sorry," I respond. "I'm Nicole from marketing," she says, extending a hand that's holding a half-empty wine glass. "You're Ashley's husband, right? The welder?" "Shane." And yes, I confirm, surprised that she knows my actual profession instead of Ashley's corporate euphemism. Nicole nods sagely, as if this confirms something she suspected. "Must be tough," she repeats, gesturing toward the dance floor, where my wife is now grinding between two executives like she's auditioning for a music video. "What do you mean?" I ask, though I'm starting to suspect I don't want to know the answer. She looks at me with the kind of pity usually reserved for terminal cancer patients, or people who've just lost their homes to foreclosure. "Watching Ashley with Logan and Brady like that," she explains matter-of-factly. "Everyone knows she's been sleeping with both of them for months. They pass her around at these events like some kind of party favor." The world tilts. Everything, the music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, becomes background noise to the roar in my ears. I look back at the dance floor, but Ashley, Logan, and Brady are gone. All three have disappeared while I was talking to Nicole. vanishing like they had somewhere private to continue what they started on the dance floor. Logan's her boss, Nicole continues, oblivious to the fact that she's just detonated my marriage. Brady is VP of Client Relations. Logan's married with 2 kids. Brady's engaged to some socialite from Scottsdale. But that doesn't stop them from sharing your wife at company events. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. I'm pretty drunk. She drifts away with a sympathetic smile, leaving me alone with knowledge. That feels like swallowing molten steel. My hands shake as I move through the crowd, scanning faces, looking for my wife. No sign of them anywhere in the ballroom. I check the bar, the balcony, the bathroom areas. They've vanished like they planned it. Then I hear it, faint but unmistakable, coming from down a hallway marked Private Staff Only, moaning. Ashley's voice, breathless and urgent, punctuated by deeper masculine sounds that make my vision narrow to a tunnel of rage. My hands shake as I pull out my phone, open the camera app, and hit record. I don't think about consequences or legality or what happens next. I just move down that hallway toward the sound of my marriage disintegrating. The conference room door is closed but not locked. I don't knock. I don't hesitate. I don't give them a chance to stop or hide or make excuses. I throw the door open with enough force to slam it against the wall. The scene is worse than anything I could have imagined. Ashley is naked on a mahogany conference table, positioned between both men, frozen in shock as camera light floods the room. For a split second that feels like eternity, nobody moves. The tableau is obscene, undeniable, permanently captured in the high definition. Then Ashley screams. The men fumble for clothes scattered across the floor. And my rage explodes like a dam bursting after years of pressure. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't strategic. It was pure, primal fury channeled through 10 years of union training and physical labor. Logan, still half naked, takes my fist to his nose before he can raise his hands. The crack is audible, satisfying, final. Blood explodes across his expensive shirt. Brady tries to run naked down the hallway, but I catch him, driving my fist into his gut with all the force of suppressed rage. I grab Logan by the ankle and drag both bleeding executives into the main ballroom. The music stops. Conversations cease. Everyone turns to stare at the spectacle. 2 naked, bloodied corporate executives being pulled across marble floors by a blue-collar worker in a rumpled suit. Everyone want to know what Logan and Brady were doing in that conference room, I announce, holding up my phone, still recording. They were having sex with my wife, both of them, at the same time, at a charity gala. The silence is absolute. Then gasps, murmurs, the distinctive sound of dozens of people reaching for their phones. Ashley stumbles out half-dressed, sobbing, reaching for me desperately. I pull off my wedding ring and throw it at her feet. We're done. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow. By Saturday morning, the video has gone viral. Local news picks up the story. Monday brings termination notices for all 3. Ashley loses everything: career, reputation, future prospects. Logan's wife divorces him, takes the kids and house. Brady's engagement implodes publicly. 3 months later, my divorce is final. 6 months later, I meet Stephanie, a teacher who respects my work. 1 year later, Ashley sends a desperate email begging for forgiveness. I delete it without reading past the first line. I learned something that night that changed everything. Respect isn't negotiable in marriage. When your partner sees your life's work as embarrassment rather than accomplishment, when they hide you from their world while living off the security you provide, the relationship is already dead. Sometimes the most merciful thing you can do is put it out of its misery publicly and permanently. The best revenge isn't just justice served cold. It's building a life so authentically fulfilling that your betrayer becomes completely irrelevant to your happiness.